Everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. May I have your attention, please? We'd like to get started. If I could have everyone's attention, please. Welcome to today's Council on Foreign Relations meeting. If I could have everyone's attention, please, here in person in New York, as well as everyone joining via Zoom. We're just about to get started. A reminder that today's meeting is on the record, and for those joining in person, if you could please check your cell phones and silence them so we don't have any interruptions. During the Q&A period, if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. If the presider calls on you, please stand, wait for one of these microphones, introduce yourself, and then ask your question. If you're joining on Zoom, you can click on the raise hand icon at any time. And then during the Q&A session, if you hear your name being called out, please accept the unmute now prompt and then tell us who you are and then ask your question. Please note that your video will remain off, but you will be unmuted so everyone online and in person can hear your question. And a reminder again, this meeting is on the record. Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Wow,
we have piece of paper.
you did. You got a pad. Hello, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed your lunch. We did. Welcome to today's Council on Foreign Relations meeting with Foreign Minister Abdullah Abu Habib of Lebanon. A timely meeting. My name is Deb Amos. I'm a Ferris Professor of Journalism at Princeton University, and I'm a recovering journalist, and I will be providing over today's discussion. We're joined today by CFR members in person in New York, and we've got 200 attending virtually via Zoom. So we have a robust audience. Minister, I want to start with this. My sense of the Middle East at this moment is we've never seen anything like this. I've been covering the Middle East since 1982, and I can't think of a time of unrest like this. Do you feel that this is a different time, that you don't quite know where the end will be?
That's true, because the killing and the destruction is worse than ever before. What happened on October 7 and later, the Israeli reaction to it was very, very, very different from any time in the region. And we had a lot of wars, even wars between Gaza and the Israelis. They were not of the same dimension. They were not of the same degree of killing and destruction. Today it is very bad, and this probably gives us big reasons so that we can support all of us peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
But there's more than just Gaza. You have the Americans bombing the Houthis bombing shipping, the Iranians bombing the Pakistanis bombing the Iranians. That's what I mean. I mean, it's not just Gaza, but the whole region is in a turmoil. And you ask yourself, why is everybody, trying to hit everybody else?
Well, I don't know whether it's not that certain whether what's happening between the Iranians and Pakistanis is related very much to what's happening in Israel. But they are all concerned, especially Iran is concerned. It's part of the game that we have in the Middle East. Yeah, it is, unfortunately, it is, still very, I don't want to say safe or not safe. I mean, in Beirut, you go to now, after 2-3 weeks of kind of slowdown, we are back to be to normal, in Beirut, although we have a war in the south. So it's the same thing all around the region. So I don't know if they are related, but there is no indication that they are related. What happened between Iran and Pakistan, between Iran and hitting Syria or that part of Syria that's occupied by Turkey, Turkey. So no, I don't know if they are related, and but Iran, of course, is involved. I mean, it has a lot of resistance movements that are really involved with Iran and has to do with Iran, of course, including Hezbollah, including the Iraqi groups and the Syrian groups as well. You know, while we see the Syrian government is neutral, has nothing to do with the war, you see a lot of areas in Syria is involved in the war, a little bit, but not very much with Israel, but more, you know, with the borders or so.
Correct. So when you read the news, you see that Israel says it plans to escalate fighting on the Lebanese border with Hezbollah if a long-term diplomatic agreement isn't reached soon. That's from the Washington Post. And this announcement is made based on interviews with unnamed Lebanese officials, so you know it's coming. And I wondered if you felt that you were being pushed into a war. Can you be involved in these negotiations over what the Israelis are talking about, which is moving Hezbollah north of the Litani River? Do you feel that you can move fast enough on negotiations to forestall what Israel's talking about?
I doubt it. In fact, the Americans came with a proposal like not around 8 kilometers north of the borders rather than to the Litani River, so that settlers in northern Israel would feel back and come back. But you see, there has not been this animosity between, I mean, there are enemies, but the Lebanese don't feel like Israel took our land, a lot of our land. We have different on the borders. We were trying so far many times in order to finish the borders between us. Israelis have been taking their time on that. And we have what we call Sheba farms also, that disputed area. They say it's not yours, it's for Syria. Well, what difference does it make, you know, we say. And if this is settled, there's very little piece of land there on the borders. If we settle it, there would be no problems between us. They can build the highest wall they want if they want. So we are really, and we're looking forward. We asked for the to have a border agreement to, you know, there are 14 points on the border that are disputed. Some of them were agreed upon years ago. And we're trying to finish the 6 points so that we have border demarcation and finish from it. And then we go to other places like the Sheba farms and the other areas there that are disputed. But there hasn't been any progress. And we think, of course, Israelis would think that's Lebanese, but we think it is the Israelis because we've asked for it. We asked it through the UNIFIL and through other means, through the Americans as well.
So when I read the Lebanese talking about 1701 and talking about the negotiations, it sounds much longer term as you describe it. You know, let's get the Lebanese-Israeli border sorted, let's get Sheba Farm sorted. Hezbollah is saying the same kinds of things. Your government is saying we need help. If the Lebanese troops are going to be on the border, we're going to need some backup on that. Some money, some backup. My sense is the Israeli timeline is much shorter. Like next month, they want Hezbollah to move north of the Litani. And I just wondered if it doesn't sound like you think that is possible.
You know, now we have like a neutralized area north of Israel because there are no people. Lots of people moved southward. And they are a big burden on Israel. And we have also something like 80,000 people moved northward.
Yes.
It's a different kind of burden because people have more relatives. They sit with their relatives. They don't stay in a hotel. They don't stay, they occupy land, houses that are free or something like that. No. So it's more costly to Israelis, perhaps, but it is the same on both. If there is a war, I mean, people are going to who have nothing to do with the war, they're going to leave the areas. So unless we have a settlement, so what would happen if Hezbollah moved northward? What would happen then? Israelis would come back and so on, but the war there down south in Gaza is going on. No, we need a whole. Last time when we had a 5 days truce, to exchange prisoners, all situation on the border with Israel from Lebanon stopped also the fighting. So it is minor fighting, and I don't think the intention is to have a big war, and it has to do also with what's going on in Gaza. What's going on in Gaza is not acceptable Arab-wise, it's not acceptable world-wise. Even in the United Nations, it's not acceptable with most countries in this world. So we really need to stop. If they stop the war in Gaza and there is truce and we start negotiating how to solve our problems, then everybody would go back and there would be no problem. And we also have to start talking directly or indirectly, mostly, with the Israelis in order to locate the borders through the United Nations, through the Americans, whatever it is, the French, if they want to get involved in that, in order to demarcate the borders and finish. The border was demarcated in 1948. We agreed upon it. But by time Israel has established some settlements on the border, and therefore there is some kind of danger, and they want to change a little bit of the border. All can be managed and all can be talked upon if there is talks, indirect or direct talks, like we do with the United Nations usually. And so we're ready to do it. We were asked to do it, but the Israelis said it's not time for it now. So if it's time for it, let's do it.
So let me just ask one more question in this vein, and then I'll leave the border. And that is, so you're saying that if there's a ceasefire in Gaza, that this small skirmishes that are going on between Hezbollah and Israel would stop.
That's right.
But the second thing is Israel's timeline has been lately, I see it in the Israeli press, they must move back. If they don't move back, we're going to bomb there. That the Americans are in Lebanon talking about moving them. Do you worry that you are being pushed into this war?
Yes, we worry that we are pushed to this war. But this war, I mean, the Israelis know it's not going to be a picnic. I mean, Hezbollah has more means than Hamas had. And therefore, I mean, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be costly for everybody. Of course, Israel has the Air Force, and they can dominate the air and the land as well. But on the whole, it's going to be damaging for everybody. I think the Israelis know that. And I think that they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't attack. And if they really reach an agreement in Gaza, this would stop immediately and automatically would stop in southern Lebanon or northern Israel. It would stop. And if we finish like the demarcation, which was put in 1948, we agreed upon, but we come back to it and do it and finish it because we don't think this is our border, then there shouldn't be any problem between us and them.
Let me ask you
Security problem.
Security problem. Let me ask you an economic question, and that is that I read yesterday that the war in Gaza has cost Lebanon dearly. It's 25% off on tourism coming into the country, that you are taking a hit. And I wondered if you feel it in Beirut, that you know that it is tied to the war in Gaza.
Look, the situation in Lebanon has not been good for the last few years. And most visitors to Lebanon are Lebanese abroad. Lebanese living in Europe, in the United States, all over the world, in the Gulf, in Africa. They come to Beirut in seasons, like on Christmas they do come, on vacations. In the summer they are all there, take longer vacation. We don't have very many tourism, We depend more now on Lebanese tourism coming, if you call it tourism, although they're coming to see their
See their
families. And because we have quite a large number of Lebanese in the Gulf and in Africa and in Europe, I'm not talking about the Americans here, because we have a lot, especially from North America, that visit Lebanon in summer. So the economy is bad because we did not put our house together in the sense. We still have a kind of unstable economic situation, but the banking system is not working very well. And so a lot of hoarding, people keep their money in their houses rather than in the bank. So this economic circle is not going on. But the country, if you go to Lebanon, you find that restaurants are open. Things are, I don't want to say normal because we are not in a normal situation. But we are not doing well, but still doing well, So.
Almost every day, there is an attack from Israel in the south. There's a Hamas operative who was killed in an apartment in Beirut. Yesterday, a Hezbollah operative was killed in a car in southern Lebanon. There are Hamas people in Beirut. Do they stay there? Do they feel that they are under threat? There seems to be a new way to operate in this war. It's called the Munich option, where Israel tracks down Hamas and Hezbollah people and shoots them. A, is this destabilizing for Lebanon? And B, do these people eventually leave?
I don't know if they leave or not, because a lot of us did not know that these people exist there, like the Palestinian leader who was there and was killed by the Israelis. But this was a violation of the game that we're playing, in this regard. That we're talking about, few kilometers, 2-3 kilometers in South Lebanon and few kilometers in North Lebanon, or miles, whichever. And now suddenly it was in Beirut, suddenly, so the Israelis, by that, they expanded the kind of struggle that we're having between us and them. And this is unfortunate. Yes, they have a way, they are better off than, Lebanon government is not involved in this war. Yes, there is Hezbollah in the south, and there are some Palestinians with it as well. But it is more under the umbrella of Hezbollah, let's say it is this. And we feel that expanding the war is not in the interest of anybody, because everybody has a lot of weapons and everybody can damage the other. So we really think that it is very important that this war in Lebanon, between Lebanon and Israel, remain very, very limited. And the same way that that Israelis went south, and there are Lebanese who went north. There is something like 80,000, if I recall, 80,000, right? And the Israelis have similar number, So we're looking forward for peace to come, and which is in the Gaza, to stop fighting there. This is the longest war that Israel is facing. This is almost 3 months. We never had a war 3 months in the Middle East. So I think the Israelis should know that at the end there is no alternative to peace and peace talks. So we're looking forward for that.
A ceasefire in Gaza does not take into account assassinations of both Hamas people and Hezbollah. I want to know how it works between the Lebanese government and Hezbollah. Do you talk to them about, we'd really like it if we didn't have a war here. Are you able to veto Hezbollah's plans?
No, we don't do that. We don't veto it. And yes, they operate in down south. And is it with the support of Hezbollah, with the government? No, there was no such government decision to support them. But the south has been under the control of UNIFIL, the United Nations forces. And also Hezbollah has been there because there is a lot of bad contact between them and the Israelis, So unfortunately, because of still Israel holds some of the land that is Lebanese. And once it is settled, and we are ready to do that, we're ready to start talking through the United Nations or through the Americans on settling the border between us and the Israelis, because we feel that the Israelis, when they left in the year 2000, they did not leave from all Lebanese land. So there are like 14 points for demarcation, and we agreed on 7. There are still 6, and they are holding. We asked last spring that let's start talking about it, and they refused, because in UNIFIL there is a committee that meets like every three months or so, that has a guy from the UNIFIL, from the United Nations forces, one from Lebanon and one from Israel. They meet and discuss it, and we proposed to start talking about, the border. And Israel said it's not time for it now. Well, we're still ready, and we would like to avoid any kind of war in the future if we really finish the demarcation of the border, which was demarcated in 1948, which was accepted in Rhodes in 1948. We feel that we don't have it all. Israel did not leave from all of it. So let's talk. Let's find out. We want to do it, solve it in peace. And then there is other areas like Shubha Farms and hills of Kfar Shuba. They say, well, we don't know whether it is Syrian or Lebanese. So what's the problem? We are saying that it is Lebanese. Syrians are not saying anything. But I mean, why Israel would care about? This is our logic, our talking. Give it back to us, and we'll talk, and we'll have a stable border. We want to have a stable border. We're not, and then they can build the highest wall that they want once we finish the demarcation, the final demarcation of the border, which again I say it was agreed upon in 1946 and 48, but there is no line to point it.
Green or otherwise.
Nothing.
So I know that you're here because there is a UN meeting on the Middle East. Will you be bringing any new proposals to negotiate 1701, which is the UN resolution after the 2000, I'm going to get this date wrong, 2006 Israeli invasion of Lebanon, and the UN resolution was the negotiated end to that, and it referred to where Hezbollah was to be in terms of the Litani. Are you here with any new proposals about 1701?
Yes, I think we want to finish our border. We want to know, and the Israelis know where's their borders, and finish agreed upon borders, and each one can do whatever it wants, because, maybe 50 years ago we were not ready to do it. Why? Because we did not recognize the right of Israel to be there. But now, since 2002, all Arabs recognize the presence of Israel, and all, in a Beirut summit, and it was a Saudi proposal, and at that time Ariel Sharon was the prime minister, and they refused. Say, let's talk. The West Bank and Gaza would go to the Palestinians and so on. Accepted the separation of Palestine, the division of Palestine. So, but the Israelis were not forthcoming. And now, even now, I mean, the Israelis, the present government of Mr. Netanyahu would not accept to do that at all. So we really need to, there are around the world, there are more Palestinians than there are Israelis in Israel. Now, even in Israel itself now, there are more than 2 million Palestinians out of 8 million total Israelis. And in the West Bank, there are 3 million and 3 million plus, and in Gaza, 2 million plus. So there are in Palestine 2 and 3 and 7 million Palestinians. And there are in Jordan and in Lebanon and in Syria a lot of Palestinians as well. They're still refugees. They still living in the dream of going back, and they still have the Palestinian accent when they talk Arabic. So they are Palestinians for all practical purposes. And so we need to solve this problem. There is a willingness in the Arab world to really solve this problem once and for all. But this government in Israel is not ready to do that.
So before I turn it over to the audience, let me ask one more question. President Joe Biden is talking about a two-state solution. Most of Europe is behind him, and so is the Arab world. Netanyahu has said absolutely not, and not only absolutely not, but I am the man who stands between a two-state solution and the Israel that we have now. And he's pretty serious about that because he is fighting for his political life in Israel. Who wins?
I think hopefully peace would win. Hopefully. I pray that peace would win because the region really needs peace, especially the Eastern Mediterranean area. Palestine or Egypt or Jordan or Lebanon or Syria, we really need peace. We've been, misunderstanding has been for a long time, and I think it's time to have peace. And peace would, and the Palestinians accepted that they have the West Bank and Gaza. So let's do it and finish. And I think the Israelis would live in peace, and everybody would live in peace, and gradually would learn how to live together. You know, we'll open up the borders to each other gradually once we recognize each other. Look, the relations between those countries, Arab countries that recognized Israel and Israel, is pretty good. I mean, they exchanged diplomatic relations. There isn't yet people-to-people relation, but it would be.
You can imagine Lebanon doing that with Israel? You are the country that it's illegal for Israelis to come to Lebanon.
No. It's illegal to go to Syria, it's illegal to go to Iraq, and many
You're not the
others.
only one. I know.
Tunisia and so on, you know. But if there is peace, yes. We have 500,000 Palestinians. If there is a solution for them, we have to do. We have to find a solution, and why not? I mean, this is the Arab Summit in 2002. It was in Beirut also that was taken. This issue is settled in the Arab world, and they're still talking about it.
Okay, I am going to open this up, and I'd like to invite here in New York and on Zoom, and I'll get notices of Zoom questions, to join our conversation. So that lady right there, and the microphone will come to you. And please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Donna Shalala. Could you give us some indication? It seems to me that Lebanon doesn't have a lot of leverage when it doesn't have a president and when its economy is basically very weak. So could you give us some indication whether this year we're going to see a president and whether there's a real strategy to deal with the economy, the economic challenges in Lebanon?
Well, my answer is inshallah. We have a president this year. Because we try in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to isolate ourselves from the problems in the country, including the election of a president, so that we can conduct our foreign policy without any problem. So we don't get involved very much. It doesn't mean we don't know. Now, I don't know. I mean, there is an attempt from a committee of 5 countries that include the United States, France, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Egypt, a new attempt to do it. I think the people in Lebanon, the decision makers, and there are so many, they wait. Well, let's see now. The Committee of 5 is coming. Let's see. The French played at one time or another single role among the, among the 5, and so everybody waits, and then there is no result. So I think if it's left for us alone, I think this is my only impression. It doesn't mean that I can share it with others. I mean, it's shared by others. Is that it should be left and should be pressure on us to elect a president, and we'll elect a president.
Go ahead.
So, for a long while in my dealings in Lebanon, there was a tight relationship in banking, particularly between Lebanon and Syria. And I didn't hear any discussion today about your relationships with Syria following the brutal results of their civil war and their attachment somewhat with the Russians. Would you like to comment?
Yeah. Well, it is undiplomatic to talk about other countries when it's not related to you. But I tell you that the Syrian government and regime, they are not very much involved in the war taking place. It doesn't mean they are not part of it or something, but they are not much involved, I think, in it. And but Syria is not completely under the regime's, control. There are areas under the Turkey's control, others are Americans and their allies, others at Golan that's what the Syrian thing is under the Israelis, and so on. And so there are also forces there that are not Syrians. The Russians are there, the Iranians are there. So, but the Syria as is, the government of Syria and Damascus and all the areas, they try not to get involved in the war. They really, that's what we hear from them. Otherwise, but the land of Syria as a whole is involved. I mean, there are a lot of action going on from around the Golan Heights or from Syria towards the Golan Heights and so on.
Man right behind Rita.
Lorente, if I can just follow up on Rita's question. What do you see as the status of what's happening in yesterday's war, that is Syria? Has the fighting effectively ended, or do we just not read it? And is the political process for some, inshallah, future political resolution dead, alive? And what about all the Syrian refugees who had decamped to Lebanon? Are you still playing host to them without much financial support?
Yeah. No, Syria, as I said, it has part under the Turkish control and part under the American and Kurdish control and part maybe some militias. But the regime is sanctioned very much, especially from the United States. Very difficult to deal with them before without being penalized by the United States. Last time I was there in October, right? Yes, and around October 10, and I met with UN people there. They are working there with the Syrian regime, and they say that 90% of the population is under poverty level. So they don't have, when they had an earthquake in the north, I mean, they didn't have the equipment necessary in order to help. We had to send them few from Lebanon. They're trying their best. They know that they are sanctioned strongly, by the United States, especially, not necessarily Europe all this way. And there is they have a lot of pride, sometimes we have a word, it's called amfuwan, which is the false pride, sometimes, because you have to be in this word more pragmatic than you are. But they have a lot of pride in what they're doing. And I think, we deal with them a little bit better than we used in the past. That's all what I can say. But now the regime has, to the best of my knowledge, I may be mistaken, has kind of isolated itself from the war going on now between Israel and on the two fronts, Israel in Gaza or in Lebanon.
And the Syrian refugees?
Syrian refugees in Lebanon, we have around 2 million. They are mostly supported by UNHCR, and which is supported by Western countries, because China or of course Russia or the Arabs don't pay very much to UNHCR for this purpose, and still the West is determined to keep them, and there are too many for us. 2 million out of population, We are 5 million, but 1 million in the neighborhood in Lebanon. We have 1 million Lebanese in Europe, in Africa, and in the Gulf. And so we have 4 million, and 2 million of them are Syrians, 500,000 Palestinians. They are, quite a large number to accommodate. We don't know. I mean, we don't want to have some kind of a quarrel with the Western countries, especially Europe and the United States, because they are financing their stay there. And what we found out later that they have nothing to go back to Syria. It is not a political situation because they are normal people. They may have any kind of thinking that would not affect the regime's presence. And what we want is, the issue is that they are there economically. They are in Lebanon, in Jordan, and in Turkey. In Turkey, they are accommodating them because Turkey is a big country. But in Lebanon and Jordan, they are pretty tough. I mean, we have 2 million out of 4 million living in Lebanon. That's, it's too many. But they do work sometimes in Lebanon because we need manual workers. And and the Syrians, we talked to the Syrians, said they're most welcome to come. Anyone who has a problem, we try to solve it before it comes. But they have nothing to go back to Syria. Last time before Christmas, we were in Geneva, right? And we talked with the UNHCR people and say, have a pilot project there for their return. Have 4 or 5 villages. Let's rebuild them, get them back, continue to pay them whatever you pay them, and see what happens. Because the purchasing power between Lebanon and Syria is very, very different. The $100 in Lebanon, you need $25 in Syria. So they can live happily there. And, they can build their villages that was destroyed and so on. So we're still at the beginning. They're still studying and they need approval on it. And, when the Arab League made an attempt to start helping Syria get back, because it's really affecting every one of us, especially Jordan and Lebanon. And in the future, if it continues, it would also affect Israel as well. Because when there is when people are deprived, you don't know what they do, or where they go, wherever. And but it stopped. This committee of 5 countries, it stopped working because there was Western pressure on it. We don't want to deal with Assad. Well, Assad is there. I mean, if you don't, we have to deal with him or remove him. We cannot remove him. We have to deal with him. And there was a big war against him, and he's still there. And he is not the only dictator in the region. So if he's a dictator, he's not the only one. So we want really, Syria should come back to play its role peacefully and gradually. And still, we didn't hear from the UNHCR about this pilot project that we talked about when we were in Geneva.
Let's take a question from our audience on the internet.
Take our next question from Christopher Isham.
Hi, it's Christopher Isham here. Thank you. Question, sir. You mentioned briefly the banking crisis. I know this is slightly out of your portfolio, but you are an economist by background. What is Lebanon doing to restore confidence in the banks and stabilize the banks? And what are you saying to investors, both domestic and foreign, about when they can get access to their funds?
Well, we still have the problem. We still did not solve the banking system problem. They're still working, but very limited work. And their work is not really affecting positively the economy in Lebanon, unfortunately. So we did solve this problem, although now the central bank is on the move because we don't have a president, we don't have a full-fledged government. I don't know. We try, as I said at the beginning, to isolate ourselves as a foreign ministry from the rest of the political situation there. But we're still have some problems in the banking sector.
Thank you.
It's coming.
My name is Lucy Commissar. I'm a journalist. My grandparents on both sides were Jewish immigrants to the United States over 100 years ago, escaping repression and pogroms in Eastern Europe and in Russia.
Question.
As an American Jew, I am appalled at the Israeli genocide in Gaza. And I wonder why the Arab countries are not acting more forcefully, acting at all, it seems, to protect the Palestinians. Now, you indicated, I would guess, therefore, it's the border and it's refugees that you don't want to anger the Americans or the Israelis. What about the other countries? I have read that one of the reasons might be that they are getting shipments of Israeli arms and surveillance technology and don't want to endanger that. Can you say why the Arab states are not acting strongly to protect the Palestinians?
Wow, this is a difficult question for a diplomat to answer, because I have to give an opinion about other countries. I cannot. I'll tell you about Lebanon. Yes, we think we are affected very much directly by the war, and we look forward to finishing this war. Killing each other is not a solution. I think the solution is to create for whatever left of geographic Palestine, historical Palestine, 22% to the Palestinian people, and they have accepted that. Arafat has accepted that long time ago, but there has to be some kind of dialogue in order to reach a final agreement on this. And sometimes the world, especially the United States, leave it to them, to Palestinians and Israelis. I think there should be direct involvement, strong involvement, because this is a problem that really affects everybody, not in the region, even around the world, including the United States here. So the best thing is to really, now is a good opportunity to find once and for all a solution for this. And with the Palestinians accepted that Gaza and the West Bank would be their own country. But more and more the Israelis are implanting Israelis there in the West Bank. You have a lot of settlements. The settlements are growing. But, no matter what, it cannot. I still recall in 1967 when Israel occupied the West Bank, there were 0 Israelis and 750,000 Palestinians. Now there is 3.3 million Palestinians and less than 750,000 Israelis. So they cannot beat them. I don't know what's the the issue. And it is not 1948 is not going to happen again. This is what especially this Israeli government that exists now should understand. I mean, the Palestinians are not going to go away from being in the West Bank and in Gaza. So the best way is to deal with them and try to see things are not the same as it used to be in 1948. In 1948, they left thinking that it's in a couple of weeks. They were thinking still of numbers. Arabs are so many, Israelis were so small, but this is not, they didn't take into consideration technology that even existed there. It's different. Now, they're not going to leave their country. They feel that they are Palestinians, and wherever they go in the Arab world, they're still Palestinians. I think they assimilate more in the United States than they assimilate in Arab countries, to say the truth about it. I mean, Palestinians in Lebanon, I'll give you an example. Since 1948, they've been in Lebanon. Of course, they started like 100 and something thousand. Now they are over 500,000. But they're still Palestinians. They still have the Palestinian accent. You can tell a Palestinian from whenever he tells you good morning. So they need a country of their own, and I think the sooner the better for all people in the region. The Arabs have accepted Israel. I would say before 67 or before 73, they did not, but now they do. And there are 6 or 7 Arab states that have recognized Israel. including Egypt and Jordan and the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco. They are all accepted. So, we look forward to a peaceful situation, to people accept each other and live together. I think it's good for everybody.
Sir.
Thank you. Mr. Foreign Minister Cliff Krause of the New York Times. Could you give us a little update on the situation with natural gas drilling offshore Lebanon, and if the current conflict has any implications for the exploration and production there?
I wish I know more than I know, but I don't. Okay, now everything has stopped because nobody wants to take a risk. I think Total did find a little bit of gas, but didn't go deeper there to find more. And it's the process in Lebanon is slow, but we think we have gas. We have gas down, under the water. But the process of developing it is very slow. So, and now that the war is going on, I think everybody has stopped. Even in Israel, in the northern areas, they've stopped working there at the same time, because of the war. Nobody wants to jeopardize the work there or be hit by anybody. So I wish I have more to say about it.
Questions? I have one, and it is this. So you say that, give peace a chance, and watching Gaza, who wouldn't? But we've had these moments before. There was Oslo, and it seemed at that time that we were on a path to a solution. Now we have calls for a solution after horrendous death and destruction from both sides. What do you think has changed to make this time the time that is the breakthrough, where people get really serious about a two-state solution or not, or whatever the solution is?
Countries need to have a leader that they really have confidence in. Isaac Rabin was not killed by an Arab. It was killed by Israeli. And with him stopped the process. Unfortunately, things, Shimon Peres came after him, and he only stayed 6 months, and then came Mr. Netanyahu. And then came Mr. Barak after Ehud Barak, and he tried his best. And they did reach in Camp David a solution with President Clinton at that time. I think, after all these experiences, I think everybody is ready for a solution. Khalas, the borders is demarcated. Everybody knows where its country is. So it's acceptable, the West Bank and Gaza, but stop taking part of the West Bank. I mean, you have maybe around 750,000 Israelis in the West Bank. And more is coming, and they're very aggressive, So we need really we need a little bit of peace, a little bit of thinking, a little bit of work, and then we should reach a solution soon.
But Hamas is against a two-state solution. Netanyahu is against a two-state solution. The settlers against a two-state solution. So it's not everybody, and it's some key players who are against. So I don't see how you get from here to there. I mean, I see that Mr. Netanyahu is not a popular man, and it is quite likely that he will be replaced, and there will be another leader of Israel, and then we'll see. But for the moment, that is who you have.
Arafat was not for two-state solution.
Correct?
He became for two-state solution. I don't know anybody in Hamas. And I think they should be the same. They realize that Israel is there to stay, and they realize, I think, all what they want. I mean, the way they were living in Gaza, it does not produce except what the West called terrorist, what in the Arab world is called nationalist, you know. So no, I mean, I think if there is more more democracy and more openness in Gaza, they cannot exploit anything. Everybody says they have a gas in their sea there, that they are not allowed to search it and so on. So you need really a relaxation of things in the region, which is not coming. And, you know, I don't know about Hamas. I don't know anybody in Hamas. But I think at the end, you know, Fatah and Arafat were like that. They wanted back all of Palestine. And they accepted at the end to live in the West Bank and Gaza. Things did not go. Isaac Rabin was killed, not by a Palestinian, you know, as we said. So, you know, let's give peace a chance. That's all. Let's give peace a chance, you know. And there is a way, and a good number of Arab countries have recognized Israel. So let's move. Let's move in it.
Sir.
My name is Andrew Gunlock, CEO of Blyschroeder. Educate me, please, because in our own country, America, as a result of the war, we've had a breakout of anti-Semitism that we haven't seen before. On a campus otherwise colloquially known as the Jewish Ivy, Penn, okay? And we've had pro-Palestinian marches in New York City that we have never seen. I've never seen. I grew up in New York City. I'm curious what it looks like from your area of the world. Are you surprised? And I'm not talking about people like you who know America well. I'm talking about the street. What is the images on TV, on Instagram, which is, we never had a war like this on Instagram, right? What is that saying to your people, meaning your Lebanese people, but also the Muslim world? What can we learn from you?
Let's talk about the Muslim and Arab world. We all want a peace. The Arabs, I mean, you know, I counted for you 5, 6 Arab countries that already have peace with Israel. And the rest are not far away from that if they get back, you know, if we go back to first give a Palestinians chance. I mean, we have 500,000 Palestinians in Lebanon. You know, when you talk to them in Arabic, we understand same language, but they have different accent. They have a Palestinian accent, you know. So when you give them that right, I think the Arabs are open now to a solution. We're tired of wars there. And it is mostly unnecessary wars. So we want really a peace in the region. And I think now everybody in the world, you know, looks at the situation there as this is the time for peace, but they cannot move because the Israeli government is completely against that kind of peace. Peace that would give the Palestinians a state, you know. They are completely against it, and they're encouraging settlers in the West Bank to take more and more and more land. It can't work this way. This means that problems forever. So we really, I think the Arab world, most of the Arab world is ready for peace. And you see, there are no demonstrations, there are no problems, and all where they go around. I mean, we had an Arab summit and we had a committee of around 4 or 5 countries, an Arab and Islamic summit and committee of around 5, 6 countries. They all were preaching peace. They were not preaching war. You know, among the Arab countries, there were Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and who else?
UAE?
Jordan, mostly. Qatar also got involved. And Islamic countries, Turkey, and I think Indonesia got also involved. They all searching for peace. You cannot talk with peace with Mr. Netanyahu, as he says, you know, all the time. So we really need peace in this region, and peace is at hand if we work for it. And I think you know, a lot of Americans I talk to, they want the 2-state solution, but we don't know how to get it. We really need the 2-state solution. The Palestinians are Palestinians. We talk Arabic. Like here we talk English in the United States, but we're not British, right? And so on. I mean, how many countries in the world speak English? I mean, their first language, but they are not British. So this is the same thing in the Arab world. It's not like throw them to the Arab world, like Israel at the beginning in Gaza, they want to throw them to Egypt or to Jordan or so on. It doesn't work this way anymore. That was in 1948 that they left. They didn't know what they were doing. Now, it doesn't work this way anymore. Hopefully, Israel would also wise up on that and accept that, you know, expansion is not possible anymore, and accept a two-state solution. That's how it works. And try it. Let's see what happens.
We have time for one or two more questions. Anybody? Come on, brave people. Let's solve Israel-Palestine right here, right now. So, do you see a moment where, I can't figure out what the timeline is. I mean, if the war is over, there's an election in Israel. We know that there will be a new leader, but between now and then, Netanyahu's view kind of rules the day. So how do you see that change? How do you see that timeline where there is a different conversation? I recall 1973, when Egyptian Third Army was encircled in the Suez Canal area. And Israeli army was few miles from Damascus. And Americans say if there is going to be chance for peace, that's America. Kissinger was there, and Nixon in 73. And they said no. And they held everything, the supplies to Israel. And then whoever was, I think Golda Meir was the prime minister, accepted. They stopped, and you know, later what happened. So, but she lost her job.
She lost her job because of the war, because she was ready for the war,
And
not
it's
because
very-
of American pressure.
No, but it's very similar to what's happening now.
Well, he's going to lose his job anyway. I mean, it's not me who decides that, it's the Israelis. And the way it's going, I think Mr. Netanyahu is going to lose his job. So everyone who fought a war, even if you win it, you lose a job. I mean, I think in 1973, I mean, Golda Meir at the end won the war, right? And she lost her job. In which years also? In 1970, then Olmert lost his job, okay? And who else? You know, Begin won the war in Lebanon. He kicked the Palestinians out of Lebanon, right? I mean, 12,000 armed Palestinians left Lebanon, then their families followed. So, and he at the end, he was out. So people don't like wars. So not necessarily they support those who are involved in the war, whether directly or the response was late.
So, Mr. Minister, I would like to thank you so much for being with us today. And thanks everybody for joining this session.
Thank you.
This is on the record. And note that the video and transcript of today's meeting will be posted on the CFR website. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
you.
Minister.
Thank you.